Yo, what is up everyone? This is OJ over here from PlayerEssence and welcome to another The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild video that I have here for you guys. So today we're going to be talking about what Reggie Aonuma said about the game not being inspired by Skyrim or any other Western RPGs, and how Reggie Fils-Aimé said that the game has struck a chord with the Western and Eastern audience. So I do want to talk about this because there was a story that came out years ago that Reggie Aonuma was just kind of looking at the Elder Scrolls Skyrim as far as influencing the next Zelda title, but then he later came out and said, oh no, that's not the case. But now you look at the game that they're doing here, and there's a lot of elements that you could see from Western RPGs. There's a lot of stuff that they haven't really been doing in previous Zelda games that you would see in a Witcher, or that you would see in just an RPG, an open world RPG, and many people draw the parallel or comparisons to Skyrim. This game is definitely not Skyrim. It definitely doesn't look like Skyrim, it doesn't play like Skyrim, and the mechanics as far as the looting and everything is a lot lighter than The Witcher or than the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. But there's still some comparisons going around. So here's what Reggie Aonuma had to say as far as if the game took some inspiration from Skyrim or The Witcher. Quotations. First of all, I think that many of the staff members do play many different kinds of games, open world games like you mentioned, but I don't think there was one game that we really looked at and said we want to make a game like this. Instead, like I mentioned earlier, we wanted to really expand on the world of Skyward Sword, and we kind of tried to think about what kind of cycle can we create in this game that really encourages continuous exploration, so that what came up was things like needing to cook and gather ingredients to eat, needing to procure weapons from enemies because they break, things like that. There's a cycle of expending something and then procuring something. That's like the main important part of the game, and it was kind of drawn more from that than any singular inspiration. And that really does make sense, but this has been something that people have been wanting for a while now with The Legend of Zelda, just because sometimes it can get kind of boring in the open Hyrule field when you're just collecting rupees and your rupee bag is full, or you're just getting bombs, or you're just getting heart pieces. To me, it got a little boring just doing that and really just getting a new item in a dungeon then using it to beat a boss. That formula was getting stale and we needed something kind of different. This is something completely different. It's something that you would see in Skyrim or you would see in The Witcher or other open world RPGs, but I think it does have a unique take to it and it has a unique flair that only Nintendo could do with Zelda. So I do think it's something different. But with that being said, I do feel that some of the staff members definitely had some influences from other open world games. I know Nintendo's younger staff members have PS4s and Xbox Ones, and they play a lot of different type of games, and I think they take some of those experiences and at least try to implement them into what Nintendo is trying to do. Alright, and then we're going to move on to the next story here, and that's just a small one with Reggie Fils-Aimé saying that how The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild struck a chord with gamers at E3, and that he's of course really excited to get this game out to everyone. But let's go ahead and get right into the quotations of what he had to say. We think we've struck a chord, and we've struck a chord with what is a very important franchise for us. A franchise that is going to be key to our long-term success. The Zelda formula is well known. You continue down a path, you battle in a dungeon, you get an item, you're going to need that item for the next dungeon, and so forth. We think that for today's player, that formula potentially needed to be upended, that we needed to introduce new elements in order to bring new players in, but we needed to do it thoughtfully in order to maintain the current player. Reggie also touched on the Eastern and Western markets, saying, quotations, behaviorally the Japanese home market and the West aren't so different that the tastes are fundamentally polar. A great example of this is Splatoon. An online multiplayer shooter is something that you would associate with the West, and yet in Japan, the amount of players playing Splatoon, the amount of games sold relative to the install base of Wii U is better than the US performance. It all comes down to this. Is it fun? Is it compelling? Is it unique? Does it provide something to the player that they really relate to? So I definitely have to agree there with some of the stuff as far as the relations between the Japanese market and the Western market. There are a lot of things that do come into play, like what he said, like with Splatoon. That game has been a runaway success. Some people didn't think it would do that well in Japan because it is a shooter. But then again, you have to look at the art style and the squids and just everything that you could do in that game. And I kind of knew that it was going to be a big game wherever it launched, whether it was here in North America, whether it was in Japan or in Europe. It's fun and people like it, and I think that's the same thing you're gonna get with The Legend of Zelda. I don't think there's going to be any, oh well, more in Japan than here in America. I think this is finally the Zelda game that people in Japan get super excited about, because Zelda has always been bigger here in North America, and I still think it'll do better here in North America, but I do think that this Zelda game is going to be the one that really draws way more Japanese players in than the previous Zelda games, like say for example Skyward Sword, or even some of the DS Zelda games that haven't done quite as well. I think this is the one that's going to do it because of all the extra things you can do, because of the armor and the weapons and the upgrades and the cooking and the open world. I do think that's going to have more of a universal appeal than any of the other current Zelda games that we have. Alright guys, that basically wraps it up for this one here. What do you guys think about these two stories here? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And what is your favorite Legend of Zelda games? My favorite Zelda game of all time is The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, but I really do think The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild could be my new favorite Zelda game in 2017, so we're just gonna have to wait and see on that one. Go ahead and hit that like button if you did like it. Lets me know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future, and also subscribe to PlayerEssence for more news, reviews, trailers, tips and tricks, and everything on The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Thanks for watching. We'll see you for the next one. Peace.